Hello and welcome. This is a chat with the professional, your regular. My name Martin Sobu, and I'm sure glad to be with you. Today on the show, we are having a core professional of Nigerian extraction who is practicing in the United States of America, Los Angeles, California to be precise. This is one man who has been in the airspace management for over 30 years as an aerospace and electronics engineer, a technical fellow at the Boeing Company, or for the Boeing Company, of course, the makers of most of the aeroplanes that fly Nigeria's airspace. Today on A Chat with the Professional, we shall be looking at airspace management, some of the crashes we have had, the things that we could avoid, the ones that are not avoidable, and of course the things that we should do right to make our airspace safer than they currently are. But the special interview segment, as usual, will come after this break, so don't go anywhere. We will return shortly. Today we have another Nigerian professional practicing in the United States of America. At this time, a technical fellow for the Boeing Company, an aerospace and electronics engineer. He is also an expert in renewable energy as well as an attorney. And one wonders how these Nigerians achieve the magic of, juxtaposing between art, science, and engineering in one brain. And that's why they say Nigerians are the best all over the world. So join me now as I welcome to the show Dr. Obi Iloputaife, the CEO of Film Power Energy based in Los Angeles, the United States of America. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, going through your resume, I can't stop but keep wondering how you guys over here do all this.
Well, starting as an engineer and working in the aerospace industry for over 20 years, then realizing that you could actually do more. So doing more being that using your engineering background and adding law to it, you can then practice patent law, which actually then opens you up to all kinds of
a whole lot of opportunities
in the technical world, yes.
A fellow for the Boeing Company, and of course I'm sure Nigerians will be wondering, is it not the same Boeing that makes aircrafts? We know that the majority of the aircraft used in the Nigerian airspace are made by Boeing. So what would be your assessment of Nigeria's aviation industry, for instance, technically speaking?
Well, I believe that the problem right now is lack of the maintenance culture that you would have like here in the Western world. Aeroplanes are built to last a very long time, over 30 years, but they also have to go through regular maintenance. And those maintenance schedules have to be adhered to. And also, before you fly an airplane or let an airplane fly with passengers on board, there are some minimum safety requirements that you have to meet before you can take off. For instance, if you had an airplane with two engines and one engine is malfunctioning, or you're seeing some light come up on one engine, you do not take off because you only have one engine left. Things like that. Those things here in the United States, somebody would have to sign off on them before you take off. I don't know how things are done in Nigeria, but I do believe that sometimes they cut corners, and that's why you have the problems that you do have these days.
Okay, but have you, as an individual, being a concerned Nigerian and a professional in that field, have you tried to inquire or get into finding out what goes on back home in terms of some of these checks you are talking about? Because, well, it could be just an allegation saying that airlines cut corners. I also know that there could be some other human errors, especially at the control tower, weather reading and all that.
I've done some investigation. In fact, after the crashes in 2005, I believe there were 2 crashes, Sosoliso and some other airline. I did investigate. I was actually in Nigeria at that time. And my conclusion at that time was that these companies fly old aeroplanes, and these old aeroplanes, you know, if an airplane has a life of 30 years, and the airplane is already close to 30 years. Sometimes some of them are even older than 30 years. Then there are some things that are just not on those old airplanes, you know. So it's not just the fact that the aircraft can fail structurally, but also the fact that the technology is so old that the radar might not be up to par, so you might not be able to get good weather readings and stuff like that. And then you also have problems that are not airline directly related, but problems that are actually related with the infrastructure at the airfield, or even in the Nigerian airspace itself. And those things all need to be addressed. In order for you to have a safe flight environment, those things all have to be addressed. And then, of course, the runways. You know, you look at some of the runways in Nigeria, and those also add to the problems.
So. Now, are you saying that because there have been this argument from professionals in the aviation industry that the age of an aircraft doesn't really matter, but what you're saying now is a pointer to the fact that yes, some of these checks might be in place, but the fact remains that this aircraft is aging.
Yes.
So are you now saying that, as a matter of fact, the age matters? Because they keep saying that sometimes these engines, some of them are even changed completely. But is it just a function of the engine?
No, it's not just a function of the engine. The age matters. The engines each engine has a lifetime, and after the lifetime of that engine, you have to change it. So if I have a General Electric engine, after a certain number of flight hours, I have to remove that engine and put in a new one. So you can change engines multiple times in the life of an aeroplane, but the airframe itself is still the same airframe. Getting weaker, you get cracks. You know, cracks propagate over a certain period of time, and then you get structural failures because of that. And if you don't have, you know, like here in the United States, some facilities have the ability to actually do an X-ray type review of an aeroplane. So if there are any cracks growing inside, they will see it.
They will see it.
You don't have those type of facilities in Nigeria. So these cracks, old aeroplanes, I mean, cracks start to grow. Look at the A380s. They're brand new airplanes. They have cracks in them already, right? So cracks start to grow, and they grow and they grow. So the older an airplane is, the more likely you're going to get a structural failure. That's why they all have a lifetime. Okay, so, and then, like I mentioned, it's not just that. The avionics on the airplane could also be very old. The wirings, you know, after a certain number of years, they all start to corrode and stuff like that. So you have the possibility of fire on board and stuff like that. And then those aeroplanes might also not actually have been built to withstand environment that you get in terms of lightning strikes and stuff like that in Nigeria, because I mean, when we have bad weather, with some of the lightning strikes you have in Nigeria, it's pretty severe. You know, so things like that all add up. And then, like I mentioned also, the runways are not well equipped. You know, I mean, there are some planes that can actually land themselves in bad weather, but if you don't have a good runway and with the right equipment, those planes cannot land. I mean, the pilots do the best they can, you know, with the equipment they have. You know, so usually, most of the times you hear pilot error. Yes, sometimes there's pilot error.
Well, I am sure Nigerians would be thrilled by this conversation, because back home we've heard stories, especially coming from airline representatives, telling us that it doesn't matter the lifespan of an aircraft so long as it's been properly maintained. But what he is telling us here is just like the human engine. It doesn't really matter how often you visit your doctor, So long as you keep aging, of course, basically your strength will keep failing you. It's been a nice time so far with Dr. Obi Iloputaife here in Los Angeles, California, USA. We will take a short break now, and by the time we return, we will get into specifics talking about the MD-83 crash. We will be back.
Professional handshake. Professional profile.
Nigeria is the most important country in sub-Saharan Africa.
In-depth analysis of professional issues.
Of education, the collapse of culture in Nigeria. Even with cheating, we can't pass.
Yeah.
With the enormity of the cheating.
We've not done enough. There's still more to be done.
Join Martin Zobu every week on this channel as he chats with the professionals on the program. A chat with the professionals. A program designed to x-ray the activities of professional individuals and corporate bodies.
Hello viewers, and you're welcome.
Join us.
You're welcome back. You're still watching A Chat to the Professional, and my guest here remains Dr. Obi Iloputaife, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Film Power Energy, a company based in Los Angeles, California, the United States of America. Of course, before we went on break, he has tried to give an overview of what it takes to have a smooth flight operation, talking about the aircraft. Right now, we shall be getting into specifics. I would like you to make a personal analogy as a professional of the recent crash back home involving one of the airlines with an MD-83 aircraft, which I understand is over 20 years old. What, in your own understanding or professional analysis, would have been the result, or rather the cause of this crash? I mean, that's bearing in mind that the report is not yet out as to what would have caused it.
Yeah. Well, in that particular case, I don't. I would not say really it's the age of the aircraft per se that created that problem, because from the reports I have, the preliminary results I have, is that they had some engine fires and stuff like that. But if you go beyond, if you go before the incident itself, you have to look at before the incident itself. First of all, that aeroplane should not have been allowed to take off with passengers on board. The reason I say that is this. I read that there were some incident reports about that same aeroplane prior to it flying from Lagos to Calabar, and then when it got to Calabar, they decided to fly to Abuja to pick up.
No, but those reports, majority of such reports came from the public.
Okay.
I wouldn't know if that was verified, because I'll tell you something. Yes, some of these airlines might cut corners. Yes. The regulatory agencies also might not be perfect. But I will tell you something about our people, Nigerians. Unfortunately, I received a lot of messages via the BBM.
Okay. And
even pictures of people who are still living were broadcast as being dead. Of course, there are people who have never entered an aeroplane who told you they missed that flight.
Yes.
There are all sorts of stories. So I wouldn't want you to base your analysis on that, because I don't think that has been verified.
Yeah, that's true, because until the unofficial report comes out, but the point I was trying to make is that if there were anything, if the airplane had some problems in the first place, then you should not take off. With passengers on board. Okay. I've been in the aerospace. I was in the aerospace industry for actually total of 30 years. I was directly involved 20 years, and then as a contractor for another 10 years. After that, up to just this last year. So with Boeing Company, and I know the things that you can do and things you cannot do, especially when you have passengers on board the aeroplane. For instance, I had an incident. There was an occasion where I went to flight test an aeroplane that we had just built, and it was really bad weather, and the airport was closed, but the pilot had to go back. Okay, we had a bunch of passengers, and the pilot announced on the air and said that he's going back, that anybody who wants to come can come, but they go at their own risk. I went on. I went back with them. I went on my own risk, knowing that I could die. Okay, so let me know what the risks are. So if there's problems with the aeroplane, you should not take off with passengers unless those passengers assume that risks themselves. So like I said, I can only base my assessment on the on what I hear or what I read about in the news reports. But we have that culture. I mean, an aeroplane that has 2 engines should still, while already in the air, should still be able to land with 1 engine. If there's a fire in an engine, there's a fire extinguisher that can put it out. Okay, and then you can still land. So the stories don't make any sense.
Because I was wondering what could have happened to an aeroplane that was just 3 minutes away from the airport.
Yes. So the only way is if you have a total engine failure. Both engines.
Both engines, yeah.
Okay. Then because you need power to stay up. Okay. So if you have total engine failure, all you can do is glide. And how far can you glide? You're probably not going to make it to the airport. But once engines are very critical during takeoff. Somewhat critical during landing. Because during takeoff, if you have 2 engines, one fails and you're taking off at maximum power, you have only half the power, you're going to drop. Okay. During landing, if one fails, you can still fly with 1 because you're just gliding, really. So if you lose both of them, then no chance you're going to make it to the runway. You have to land at the closest place you can find. So something must have happened. Even if you lose engines, sometimes you can find some place to land on a road, on a highway or something like that. So something must have happened that the pilot also lost control of the airplane. Hydraulic failure or something like that. So, I mean, this is all speculation, but,
My question is it possible for both engines to fail within a space of 60 minutes and there was no warning? Is it possible?
Well,
because we are talking about a distance of...
well, the thing is, you also have to realize on the MD-83, the engines are at the tail and they're very close to each other. But the chances of both engines failing at the same time is very remote, okay? Or within that
space of time.
Otherwise, that plane would not be allowed to fly in the first place. It would not have been declared airworthy by the agency that by the US, because that plane was built right here. In fact, I worked for MD Douglas. That became Boeing, but MD Douglas. So I know a little bit about that airplane, but no, it would not. It's possible, but it's very remote. It's one of those things that you say.
And if it happened, it means there were some elements of carelessness. That's what you're saying.
Well, if it happens, it could, first of all, the chance of it happening is very remote. So when I say very remote, I mean, it could be, I don't want to use numbers, but let me say something that will happen once every million times the plane flies, okay? So it's that remote.
Could there have been an act of God here, or...
Because it could be an act of God. It could be like I mentioned earlier. It could be something like a lightning strike or something like that with not enough protection on the EMI electromagnetic pulse protection on the wiring of the aeroplane. So that could happen, cause you to lose both of them almost simultaneously.
You know why I'm personally worried? I'm personally worried because I am one person who is very, very critical of things when they are not done right. Of course, most of my friends and even viewers will tell you that I don't spare anybody. But this particular airline in question, I remembered an incident. I was traveling on that airline, and we had been called up for boarding. Midway, we were stopped. We were already going into board the aircraft, and we were stopped. And passengers were like, what's going on? What's going on? We already had like 5 minutes or 10 minutes delay.
Yeah.
And then an official walks up to us. I guess that should be the airport manager to say, this aircraft has some mechanical failure.
Okay.
We can't fly you with this aircraft.
Okay.
We need to get to another aircraft. People were impressed. You know, a lot of us were happy. We went back. We spent another 30 minutes or thereabouts. Yeah. Another aircraft was brought in, and we had a smooth flight. So I'm just wondering, because, I mean, good enough, they are not a part of my show. I don't have any interest in the airline, but I just want a critical analysis of what would have happened. Instead of this, each time it happens, you know, the system is overheated, the license is withdrawn, because I was now getting another information that the cause of the Sosoliso crash in 2006 was actually a power failure at the airport.
Oh, okay.
So and long before now, we are saying it was negligence on the part of the airline. So that's why I'm being very careful.
So that's also why I mentioned infrastructure at the airport, because you know, you should not have a power failure when an airplane is coming in for landing. You know.
I just hope that your experience, either with Boeing or as an aerospace engineer, can rub off positively on the management of Nigeria's airspace. And I just hope that the powers that be are watching. I know that Nigeria is blessed with enormous human resources. How much we're able to tap into that is a question for another day. Enough of this. I'm just going to find out from you how your being an attorney has helped you in practicing your aerospace management in the US or anywhere else.
Well, like I mentioned in the beginning, as a patent attorney, you are exposed to different technologies. Okay, so what happens is you see all these different technologies, and then you say, okay, let's say it's a technology in the oil drilling industry, and you see it, they say, oh, you can apply this in the aerospace industry. You see, the reason I'm exposed to it is because I'm a patent attorney, and I get to see, I have a broad view of all the technologies, right? Yeah. So I see it, and I say, okay, I can apply it here, and then you take that, transfer it, and use it in the aerospace industry, you know, because people develop things, innovate in all the different industries, you know. Nigerians are brilliant, okay? Well, I've seen what kind of things they can do. I mean, Nigeria has run this country, for God's sake. Yeah. I'm talking about the United States of America, you know, so, you know, lots of us are, you know, I don't want to mention any name, but lots of us actually are the ones that, you see some of these airplanes that are flying, we make them fly, you know. Wow. Military airplanes, civilian airplanes, we make them fly. So
in America?
Yes.
So why can't we make them fly in Nigeria?
Exactly.
Well, that's ironical. If we make airplanes fly in America, why can't we make airplanes fly in Nigeria? Why do we have to go and bring in foreigners to come and make airplanes fly in Nigeria? It's so ironical, but what can we do? We can only but keep talking, hoping and believing that somehow, someday, some of our leaders will get to listen and get the proper advice from the proper channels, just like we are seeing in our economy with a strong economic team. I just hope that technologically we can retrace our steps and go back to what it used to be in the 60s, in the 70s, when trade schools, we had government technical schools that before you left any of those institutions, of course I'm a product of one, you had multinationals coming to book for tradesmen in various fields. I just hope that the current administration will be able to live up to the task. Well, it's been my pleasure chatting with you, Dr. Obi Iloputaife. We are hoping that someday soon we will see the manifestation of your professionalism in the management of not just Nigeria's airspace, but our economy as well. It's been wonderful having this chat with you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Wonderful.
That's the much we can take on the interview segment. A chat with the professional returns after this time out. Please stay. Well, that's the much we can take on a chat with a professional today, and I'm sure you must have been thrilled. I also know that you must have been inspired as a young person by Dr. Obi Iloputaife. Of course, the practicing professionals, I also know that you must have drawn some inspiration from him as well. And the government of the day also, I believe you are watching and listening. I also know that you will be reaching out to people like Dr. Iloputaife to see how they can come and assist in reviving our airspace management. Of course, I used to hear that Nigerian pilots are amongst the best. I do not know whether that still remains a fact. I also used to hear that Nigerian airspace managers are amongst the best, and this has been corroborated by Dr. Iloputaife. The question is, how much of this abundant manpower are we able to deploy in the management of our aerospace in Nigeria? And that's the question that will be left for the government of the day. Well, till next week when I come your way with another professional, this is still Martin Sobu saying stay blessed, and I'll see you again.
A chat with a professional. A chat with a professional. With Martin Sobu. A chat with a professional. A chat with a professional. With Martin Sobu. A chat with a professional will make you know more about the society.